Going on, guys? Just out in the garage messing around, trying to straighten up this mess that's out here. I got boxes of plastics everywhere, got real boxes on the kayak, and got my rods laid out. And I thought, let's I want to do a quick video on my rod and reel setup on everything, and why I use what I use, and what I plan on using for most of this year. So, yeah, let's get into it. All right, let's just start off with I guess one of my top water setups. This one I'll throw a lot of like whopper plopper style baits and poppers and anything top water that's got open hooks. Basically, it's just on an older 6'6" rod. It's got a good backbone to it, got some good tips so I can work my poppers or anything that needs to be walked and stuff like that. And it's just on a 6:3 to 1 gear ratio Daiwa Tatula reel with, I'm pretty sure I got 20-pound mono on here. Yeah, it's 20-pound or 17-pound mono is what I usually use on my, like I said, my open hook topwater baits. So overall, really not bad. Can really drive these hooks into them, but also I don't have the fear of ripping the hook out of their mouth. So that's a positive. Next up, let's go with, I guess, my crankbait setup. Ugh. And some of my setup, my stuff, it's not super expensive. Like this reel, it's a, however you say that, Pacific-Fun, whatever, Torrent. I mean, it's a $30 reel. But for the lack of me throwing crankbaits, I mean, honestly, it's worked out pretty good this past year. The rod is on a F5 rod, which they're made here in Oklahoma, so that's a plus. It's a great rod, good backbone, but it's got a lot of tip. Really allows these crankbaits to get down to their desired depth, and I'm running that on some 12-pound fluorocarbon. So that's pretty much my crankbait setup. Get over here. And the rod, yeah, it's a 6'8" medium fast. So, like I said, it's got some good backbone, good tip, and overall pretty good crankbait rod, I think. But I don't throw it a whole lot, which I really need to, I think, throw some crankbaits a lot more this year. But anyway, pretty good rod and reel setup. Right here, got my frog setup. It's on a Daiwa Tatula rod, 7'3", 7'4", heavy fast action. This thing's stout, which where I fish a frog is going to be in some heavy cover, heavy vegetation. I'm not worried about losing it in the thick stuff. Got that on a Daiwa Tatula 8-1 gear ratio reel with 65-pound braid. And I had a softer rod last year and I kept missing fish, and people recommended a extra heavy or at least a stouter rod. So once I switched to this, my hookup ratio with these hollow body frogs, it went up dramatically, and that made a big difference. So had this reel for about 4 years now, and it's still lasted, and it's done pretty dang good, I think. So can't complain with that setup. My finesse stuff, This is a BFS reel. It's a KastKing. I got it on 8-pound line, 8-pound fluorocarbon. This one I'm throwing my shaky heads on. I might tie on a drop shot, if I'm wanting to try that. I don't throw drop shots or a whole bunch of finesse tackle, but couldn't quite get the hang of a spinning rod, even though I grew up throwing a spinning rod. This one the BFS setup just feels so much more comfortable in my hands. So I went this route, and especially on shaky heads. I caught a lot on a shaky head last year with just a little 1/4 ounce shaky head and a 8 to 10 ounce trick worm. So like I said, not an expensive setup. Like I said, the lower end stuff is kind of like what I really don't throw a whole lot of. but I still like to have something, you know, where I'm using it. So, and these rod protectors from Evolve Fishing, man, these are really nice. They got a rubber tip for added protection on your tips and stuff, so that's a plus. I need to get me a couple more of them actually. Need to get me some shorter ones to cover my shorter rods. But anyway, here's my punching setup. Got it on a 7'4" heavy fast St. Croix rod, 65-pound braid. And again, I don't throw this setup a whole lot, but it's the Torrent 2, and it should be a 8:1 to 1 gear ratio. Yep, 8:1 to 1 gear ratio, fast. And like I said, this is short flips into some heavy cover. I like using a 1 to 1.5 ounce bullet weight and a couple of bobber stoppers. And the plastic I'll be throwing is going to be some variation of a crawl, or every now and then I might throw on a lizard, but this is pretty much my punching setup right there. I throw that Bronco bug quite a bit, and I've had pretty good success on it this past year, so not too bad. Like I said, the reel, it does okay for what it's needed for, I guess. But I haven't felt the need to go spend the big money on that setup, at least right now. If something was to happen, I lose a big fish because the reel handle breaks, then yeah, I definitely probably need to up that a little bit. But for right now, it does pretty good. This is pretty much my swim bait, chatterbait, spinnerbait setup. Right now I got a swim bait tied on. Caught a lot of fish on it a couple weeks ago, but it's an older iRod rod, 7 foot, medium heavy. It's a fast action, but to me it's more like a moderate fast. It's got good backbone for the hook sets, but it's got a lot of good bend to it. And once I switched over to this rod, that's like I said, it's got more of a parabolic bend. Seems like my hookup ratio gone up just a little bit more than the rod I had before this. And again, it's on a Lew's Tournament Pro. It should be a 6:8 to 1 gear ratio, which I feel like is a really good speed. It's not fast, it's not slow, it's just that all in between gear ratio. And I do have this on some 20-pound. Pretty sure Sunline is on this one, but whenever I tie something on, I'm not worried about the line breaking, that's for sure. But pretty sure that's 20-pound Sunline on that setup. This bad boy is my Strict A-Rig setup. Of course, I got the new Tornado Innovations clear umbrella rig. This is the Finesse bladed. And I don't throw a whole lot of A-rigs, but when I got this one and I started throwing it around, it's a game changer, I personally think. But anyways, I do have this on a 7 foot heavy fast action rod, but I feel like it's a little softer than most heavies. Like you can get away with a medium heavy if it's a little stouter medium heavy on an A-rig setup, I think. So I mean, like I said, it's got a little bit more of a bend than like my other heavy action rods, and I do have this set up on 20-pound Sunline Sniper fluorocarbon, and I've caught me a couple of decent fish on this. And this is another lower end reel. That's the rod's a Falcon Buku, which I've been messing around with the Falcon Bukus for the last 10 years. You know, they're really great for the price and for what they are. And another KastKing reel. Like I said, nothing fancy. Don't throw this a whole lot, but when I do, I've had no problems with the KastKing reel. A lot of people don't really care for them, but you know, it is what it is. I like it, and so far it hasn't let me down. Moving on to my Texas rig setup. This bad boy, which I just moved over this reel because this was on my jig setup. But the reel, obviously it's a Lew's Custom Pro, 7.5 to 1 gear ratio, 20-pound Sunline shooter fluorocarbon. Stuff's pretty stout, and this is on a 7'4" medium heavy fast F5 Ghost Code Mark II rod. Again, the F5 company, they're made here in Oklahoma. Buddy put me onto these. I pulled the trigger and bought one, and I am really impressed with these. The sensitivity is really good. The length of the handle isn't too long. Everything's comfortable in your hands. And of course the Lew's reel, it's only like 5.6 ounces. So this whole setup, it's a light setup in a good way. You're not gonna get tired throwing this around all day. And moving on to my jig setup, which I throw a jig probably 85–90% of the time. And I just picked up this reel. I honestly haven't used it yet, but I'm really excited to use it. The rod, obviously, like you know, is a Falcon Cara, 7'3", heavy fast. And this rod is sweet. I mean, it's really sensitive, stout, comfortable in the hands. And I got that paired up with the new, like I said, I just bought this reel. It's a Lew's Hypermag. It's an 8.3-to-1, so it's a little faster than I have been throwing, but that's going to really allow me to pick up that slack and set the hook when I get bit on a jig. And like I said, the handle of this rod, man, it's nice, it's comfortable. The reel's really light as well. So again, this whole setup is really comfortable. I have no problems with it because I had the Custom Pro on this rod. And last weekend when I went to the lake, you know, my hands, my arms, you know, nothing got tired by tossing a jig around. And I haven't used these jigs, but I'm excited to try them. They're from Motley Fishing. It's a tungsten skipping jig. So haven't used tungsten jigs before. Usually I'm throwing a ball head jig or a football jig, just, you know, like I said, in the lead. Had no problems there. So I'm excited to try out these tungsten jigs. And the trailer I got on here, my buddy makes these. He's with the 918 Custom Baits. And this crawl, it has a lot of good action when swimming. When I'm swimming this back, these legs really flare out and they're going crazy. And that's what I caught my big one on last week. That if you go back and check my YouTube short, that's the trailer I was using there. And this is on 20-pound Seaguar and VizX. So again, 20-pound. I'm not worried about line breaking. And on my jigs, and most of the time my Texas rigs, I'm tying on a Palomar knot. I've had no breakage before with the Palomar. It's probably one of the more stronger knots you could tie. But if you guys have other suggestions on what knots you guys like using for jigs, Texas rig, or whatnot, you know, comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what knots you guys like using. But that's just what I've used for the past, like I said, 10 years of throwing jigs or Texas rigs. And but yeah, like I said, brand new reel to me. Just picked it up, and so far just holding it in the hand and making a few casts out in the yard, I think I'm going to love this reel. Like I said, light, the handles are nice, good audible drag, audible tension knob, and a recessed brake system on the side. So I think it's going to be a good setup. But anyway, like I said, I thought I'd go over my rod and reels with you guys. And so anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video and kind of dive into my setups. And if you got any questions, just comment below, and I'll see you guys out on the water.